More news coming in this evening. MS Dhoni has stepped down as CSK captain. Ruturaj Gaikwad to lead Chennai. Ruturaj to lead CSK in upcoming IPL 2024. In a big development, we have information of Mahendra Singh Dhoni stepping down as a captain of CSK. Nikhil Nas is getting us more details on that. Nikhil is not, in fact, okay in the sense that the assessment, for example, has been that his knee is not fine. And these are reasons which could have led to this development, or there's more to this. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, see, first things first, I mean, this doesn't really come as a bolt from the blue. You often tend to see things that happen with MS Dhoni. They're kept very secretive, and then towards the end, it comes as a bolt from the blue, as it happened with his captaincy of the Indian team and his career with the Indian team. He retired without any prior information, just puts Instagram posts out and lets everyone know that he's retired. There's no build-up. He doesn't like too much drama. That's one thing that you know about MS Dhoni. What may have happened here, and there are two ways of looking at it. Firstly, of course, this being the fact that just prior to this season, he went through a knee surgery, as you point out, which is an indication that because he's given up on his captaincy, he's definitely playing this season, but it is a possibility that he may not be available to play every game for the franchise. If he's really coming back from a surgery, coming back out of an injury, then may not be every game that you see MS Dhoni play, which is why it would be better for CSK than to have a regular captain who's available for every game. That's one reason. But I think the larger reason to look at this at the moment is a sort of a transition that's happening. Now remember, this is something that CSK tried a few seasons ago when they got a Ravindra Jadeja to captain the side. He was seen as the next leader after MS Dhoni, another true blue CSK player in Ravindra Jadeja. Unfortunately, that experiment didn't go too well. Even on that occasion, they made Jadeja the captain, but MS Dhoni was around. And I think that's the crux of this matter. It's more of a change of captaincy, more of a change of leadership. And I think MS Dhoni, this very well has been documented, will be his last season in the IPL. He would want to handhold a Ruturaj Gaikwad, a young player, a young captain, through this season. And then by the time he's done at the end of this season, Ruturaj would be 100% ready to lead CSK. So I think that's what is happening. A transition is happening where Ruturaj is now the designated captain, but you'll see MS Dhoni play in the team and also help Ruturaj out in terms of decision making. And then when he's not around next season, they think that Ruturaj would be capable enough of taking the CSK franchise forward.
But Ravindra Jadeja is far more seasoned, so why not him is the big question here.
Interesting question, that, Sneha. But that's an option that they've already exercised. If you remember a couple of seasons ago, they did that. They did exactly that. Give Ravindra Jadeja the captaincy. Again, there were a few boxes that Jadeja ticked. One, as you mentioned, the experienced player. Secondly, always certain to be part of the playing 11, so makes him ideal candidate to be captain. And thirdly, a true blue CSK player who's been there for very long. So those three boxes were ticked by Ravindra Jadeja, which is why they made him the captain. Unfortunately, under his leadership, the few matches that he captained, the performances of Chennai Super Kings weren't great. And at that moment, in mid-season, MS Dhoni had to come back as captain. Now, that was a decision that didn't go down too well with Ravindra Jadeja. There was a lot of reports, and in fact, he wasn't happy. He was ready to leave the franchise, wasn't available for a few games, but that was sorted out. It's now well documented that MS Dhoni went to Ravindra Jadeja at the time and then told him that, listen, we see you playing for CSK for very long, but the captaincy call was taken collectively by the top management, and I think then they got Ravindra Jadeja back in the fold. But that moment, it was decided that the captaincy option was not going to be Ravindra Jadeja. They had to be looking elsewhere, maybe a foreign player, but as you know is the case with Chennai Super Kings, they like to have a long-term option, which is why I think it makes sense to go with a Ruturaj Gaikwad, still a youngster, has been in and out of the Indian team as well, has been scoring a lot of runs for CSK. So maybe that in mind, they've decided to go with a Ruturaj Gaikwad.
But a lot of apprehension given that experience is a huge factor here. Ruturaj Gaikwad clearly not experienced, not tested that well. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny as far as this decision here is concerned, Nikhil.
Well, right, but then, if you ever needed an example, Sneha, of giving a youngster the captaincy of a team and then doing well, then Ruturaj Gaikwad doesn't have to look too far. He just needs to look at his previous captain in MS Dhoni. We all remember, was given the captaincy in 2007 when all the stalwarts in Sachin Tendulkar, in Saurav Ganguly, Rahul Dravid decided not to go for the first T20 World Cup. So, as an experimental option, they went with a young MS Dhoni, and the rest, as they say, is history. From there on, then he goes on to captain Chennai Super Kings very successfully at that. Now they've got 5 titles, the most by any franchise, tied with Mumbai Indians. So if they really needed to look at an example of a youngster being given charge of a team and then doing well, then they've got their very own MS Dhoni to look at that. And maybe with those things in mind, with that philosophy in mind, they've decided to go with another youngster in Ruturaj Gaikwad. But as I said, he may be young, but this is a player that has captained his domestic team. He plays for Maharashtra. There have been occasions where he's captained his Maharashtra team in domestic cricket. I guess those experiences will come in handy for Ruturaj Gaikwad. Then, as I mentioned right at the start, he will have arguably the best in the business in MS Dhoni hand-holding him while he's starting on in his captaincy journey. And let's not forget, Chennai Super Kings is another team that always have the same backroom staff. So you'll have a coach, a very seasoned coach in Stephen Fleming, also to ensure that that transition from MS Dhoni to Ruturaj Gaikwad is smooth.
Nikhil, thanking you for the moment, for getting us those details. Nikhil Nas putting that story into perspective here.